Banned Books Week. Happens every October. It is currently the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I'm behind. Are you surprised? Kevin, for the rest of you, you're absolutely not. But anyway, every fall, the displays go up, the hashtags, they start rolling, and suddenly everyone's celebrating the freedom to read. And honestly, I love that week. The energy is so good. It's people standing up for stories, for access, for the idea that words matter. But if you spend enough time around readers, you start to notice something interesting. Banned doesn't always mean what we think it does anymore. Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path and Stuart Griffin both tagged me in this round of the banned book tag, which means I either owe them a drink or an apology, or potentially both. Either way, thanks to both of you for the tag, because it got me thinking about why we do this every year. We buy the shirts, we post the lists, we show up for banned books because we care. And by all means, we should. But caring also means asking questions. Like, what does it actually mean to read a banned book right now, in this moment? Now, the first question of the tag asks if I do it intentionally. And sure, I do. Most of us do. But I think that question opens up a bigger one. What counts as a banned book when you can download the book in 30 seconds? Who still loses access? And how did defending books turn into a marketing season for publishers? I'm Nick. This is Dr. Cranky Pants Reads. And I want us, before we get too proud of our banned book tote bag, to rewind a few centuries and look at how we got here. Because to understand what banning means, now we have to start with the people who invented it. And spoiler, they weren't librarians. So the first book banners weren't librarians. They were kings, they were priests, they were politicians, people with equal measures of power and anxiety. Long before there were even printing presses, there were people deciding what ideas were too dangerous. Ancient rulers burned scrolls that questioned the gods. Philosophers like Socrates got in trouble not for writing, but for thinking out loud. And the urge to control stories became as old as storytelling itself. Then Gutenberg changed kind of everything. Suddenly, ideas could move faster than the people who wanted to stop them. The church responded with an index of forbidden books, basically a 400-year-old experiment in reverse psychology. If you were on the list, congratulations, you were officially interesting. And when those ideas crossed the Atlantic, America did what America does best: moralize. In the 19th century, we banned for virtue. Uncle Tom's Cabin was banned in the South for being anti-slavery. Leaves of Grass was banned for being too intimate with itself. Huckleberry Finn was banned for every possible reason imaginable: language, race, tone, and somehow also the exact opposite of each. Because each generation finds the panic it deserves. Then came the 20th century, and something started to shift. Librarians, yes, those cardigan-wearing revolutionaries, started pushing back. After World War II, the American Library Association reframed censorship as un-American. They built policies, launched campaigns, and in 1982, they gave us Banned Books Week. Part civil liberties movement, part marketing genius, a celebration of freedom disguised as a display table. You could fight censorship and get a new bookmark. Sign me up. And for a while, that balance worked. But then the internet arrived. And it really blew up the old rules of access. Now you can download the Bluest Eye or Genderqueer before the school board finishes its public comment period. That scarcity model has totally collapsed, not by erasing books, but by rearranging who can read them. A suburban kid with Wi Fi still finds the story, but a rural or low income student whose only library is the school's doesn't. What looks like freedom from the outside can still feel like loss from the inside. And that brings us to the strangest banned book story that I know. Because my favorite banned book? Brown Bear, What Do You See? By Bill Martin Jr., which is kind of a modern classic, a classroom staple. It was the first read aloud I did with my students every year. It's this gentle parade of colors and animals that has, to my knowledge to date, never radicalized a toddler. But in 2010, the Texas Board of Education banned it briefly because they thought Bill Martin Jr. was the same Bill Martin who wrote Ethical Marxism, the categorical imperative of liberation. Two authors, same name. One wrote about bears, the other wrote about dismantling capitalism. And the board mixed them up. Within days, reporters pointed out the mistake. The ban was reversed, but the story has stuck with me because it reveals the truth. Censorship is often loud, fast, and wrong. And if that can happen to Brown Bear, imagine how easily it happens to books that actually challenge people. So let's zoom out. What does banning mean now? In a world where outrage and marketing often travel together. Publishers do not hate controversy. If anything, they respect it because controversy trends, controversy sells. A parent complains, a school board panics, headlines flare, social media erupts, and suddenly a sticker appears. The book they tried to ban. It's capitalism doing capitalistic things in capitalistic ways, turning attention into units sold. Because nothing says resistance like a sponsored post. Nothing says bravery like a curated bookshelf that also happens to be an affiliate link. And then there's the bandwagon. Penguin Random House sends out this bright, cheerful bus in October packed with 30 banned and challenged books. It tours Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and they hand out free books. They partner with every library so visitors can message their representatives. And honestly, that part is good because visibility matters. Partnerships matter. Access matters. But the bus isn't really going where the book bans are actually happening. And that, to me, smacks of pageantry. It's optics, it's posturing, it's selling us resistance as if it's merch. Censorship is bad, so buy more! Click the set! Feel righteous while you shop. Meanwhile, the librarians being harassed at school board meetings, they need legal defense funds, not a glossy book list. Teachers facing discipline for a novel on their syllabus, they need unions and policy wins. And this isn't just a corporate problem. We're now watching individual creators weaponize the language of banning for clicks. Now, you may have seen this. It's kind of been everywhere, and that could just be my algorithm. But two huge TikTok creators, Matthew and Paul, self-published a book about gay penguins. Cute premise, but it feels like I've seen it somewhere before. Great, right? But a bookstore returned 100 unsold copies after a canceled event, something extremely normal in publishing. But then they went online and implied that their book had been banned for being gay. Their followers swarmed the bookstore. They harassed employees. They doxed the wrong Black woman named Tanya. All because someone cried censorship without understanding or really caring about how distribution works. And here's the worst part, because the people correcting them, queer bookstore staff, queer authors, even an Ingram employee, got branded the real homophobes. It is the perfect example of what happens when the term banned becomes a marketing strategy instead of a meaningful category. Fake martyrs get sympathy sales, and queer booksellers get harassed. And readers get confused about what actual censorship is. So yes, banning sells, but what it often sells is the appearance of resistance, not the reality of it. The next question in the tag asks, which book would you memorize to save it from the censors? It's a great image. It's got really good drama, like Fahrenheit 451. But in 2025, we have PDFs. We have cloud storage. No one's memorizing novels to save the world. The better question may be, what do you memorize because it matters to you? What do you keep because it keeps you? I would memorize lines that remind me how to be more human, passages that rearrange my internal furniture, not to thwart a censor, but because they're worth carrying. Whenever I'm in a new city and I'm feeling lonely, I go to my local bookstore and I find Edna St. Vincent Millay's First Fig. I read it, it grounds me, I feel a little less lonely. And that's the difference between performing literacy and practicing it. I'm not memorizing Fahrenheit 451 to save civilization. I'm memorizing lines from a book of poetry from the 1920s because they remind me how to live in one. Now, this last question asks whether any books challenge my views on banning. And honestly, the question itself challenges me. It assumes that all banned books deserve defending. And this could be a hot take, but they don't. Some books are banned because they tell uncomfortable truths. Some books are banned because they do active harm. These two things are not the same. Let's take The Bluest Eye and The Anarchist Cookbook. Both have been banned, but those bans are not morally equivalent. The Bluest Eye? It's banned because it forces readers to confront the violence we've trained ourselves not to see. Morrison doesn't sensationalize that violence. She traces it, layer by layer, back to the systems that produce it. And that's what great literature does. It disorients us long enough to recognize ourselves. Now, The Anarchist Cookbook, meanwhile, isn't art. It's a manual. It doesn't expose harm to help us understand it. It outlines harm so we can replicate it. Even the author has regretted writing it because it kept surfacing in connection with real-world violence. Calling those two books banned in the same sense is like saying surgery and assault are the same act because both involve cutting. Now, this position doesn't fit well on a tote bag, and that frustrates some of my students and a lot of my friends. But slogans flatten nuance, and nuance is really where the truth usually hides. The better slogan? Don't just read banned books. Ask why they were banned, because the reasons tell you a lot more about the censor than the censored. So no, I don't intentionally read every banned book. They're not Pokemon. I don't need to catch them all. I read the ones that interest me and that move me and that challenge me, because that's the point of reading. Banned Books Week started as a fight for access, and that fight still matters, but the harder fight now is for understanding, for reading beyond performance, for thinking alongside the book, not just holding it up for a picture. Now, I'm not one to rain on anyone's joy, so buy the Tote if you want. Post that list, but make sure the reading comes with thinking, because that's where freedom actually lives. So thanks again to Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path and Stuart Griffin for tagging me. You made me think harder than I planned to, which made me procrastinate harder than I had planned to. And I am grateful for that, the thinking part, not the procrastination part. Dear viewers, I appreciate you, and I hope life is good. Now, if you'll excuse me, I feel the need to go reread Brown Bear. Brown Bear, what do you see? You know, just in case it disappears again.